When Christina Applegate first stepped onto the set of Married with Children in 1987, she was just 15 years old, a teenager walking into one of the most controversial sitcoms in television history. The show was bold, provocative, and constantly pushing the limits of what network television would allow. At the center of that chaos stood a young girl who, whether she knew it or not, needed someone to look out for her. That someone turned out to be Ed O'Neill, and what grew between them over the next 4 decades is one of Hollywood's most extraordinary and least told stories. Most people watched Married with Children and saw Al and Kelly Bundy, a bumbling father and his dim but lovable daughter. What they never saw was the real dynamic happening behind the scenes. Ed O'Neill, then in his early 40s, had already navigated the unpredictable currents of Hollywood. He understood better than most what the entertainment industry could do to young people, particularly young women who were suddenly thrust into the spotlight. Christina was playing a teenage character who was written as a sex symbol. The jokes were often suggestive, the outfits revealing, and the media attention intense. It could have easily led somewhere dark. Ed made sure it never did. According to Christina, Ed would quietly shield her from inappropriate conversations on set. He would step in when situations became too adult, redirecting without making a scene. He positioned himself near her during difficult scenes and made sure the environment around her remained safe and professional. None of this was in his contract. None of it was required of him. It was simply Ed O'Neill choosing every single day to be a genuinely good human being. Crew members who worked on the show over the years have recalled watching this protective dynamic unfold. Noticing how Ed would pull Christina aside between takes to check on her, how he would quietly take control of conversations that were heading in the wrong direction, how he was always subtly looking out for her. The care extended beyond the set itself. Ed would drive Christina home after late-night shoots because he did not want her traveling alone. He would call her mother to reassure her that her daughter was being watched over. When producers pushed for situations that made Christina uncomfortable, Ed pushed back. He was, in every meaningful sense, the father figure she needed during the most formative years of her life, and for nearly 4 decades, neither of them fully revealed just how deep that bond had become. Christina spent 11 years on that set, growing from 15 to 26 years old. Those are the years that define a person. They shape identity, confidence, and character. She has openly acknowledged that Ed's presence during that time fundamentally altered who she became as an adult and as a performer. As the years passed, their dynamic naturally evolved. In the early seasons, it was clearly a mentor and student relationship. But as Christina found her footing and her voice, she began contributing creatively, bringing ideas to the table, holding her own in ways that surprised even experienced members of the production team. Ed watched all of it with quiet, genuine pride. The bond between them was tested early. In 1989, a Michigan woman named Terry Ricalta watched an episode of Married with Children and launched a full-scale advertiser boycott against the show. Major corporations pulled their support. Network executives held emergency meetings. There were serious conversations about canceling the series outright. For Christina, who was 17 at the time, the crisis was terrifying. This show was her entire career, and suddenly it was at risk of disappearing because of a cultural firestorm she had no control over. Ed O'Neill refused to let fear take root. He sat down with Christina and David Faustino, who played her on-screen brother Bud, and told them plainly that whatever happened, they had created something worth being proud of. He then went further, contacting the press himself, giving interviews that defended not just the show, but the young people working on it. He ensured that in every public conversation about the controversy, someone was speaking up for his TV kids. The boycott ultimately backfired spectacularly. The negative attention made audiences curious, ratings surged, and what was meant to destroy the show only made it more popular. But Christina has said that what she remembers most from that frightening time was not the ratings victory. It was Ed standing steady beside her while everyone else panicked, showing her what it looks like to handle a crisis with grace. When Married with Children ended in 1997, it did so without ceremony. There was no finale, no emotional goodbye, no sense of closure. One day they were filming, and the next day they were not. After 11 years of working together, almost daily, celebrating birthdays, watching each other grow, creating hundreds of episodes that would influence television for generations, the family simply scattered. Christina has described that period as deeply disorienting. You have a routine, a community, people who know you better than almost anyone. Then one day it all stops, the set is torn down, and everyone moves on. But she and Ed never truly separated. Even after the show ended, they stayed in touch, phone calls, meals, check-ins. Ed continued to follow her career, offering advice when she sought it and support even when she did not. Christina went on to appear in films like Anchorman and to star in acclaimed television series like Samantha, Who, and Dead to Me, earning awards and widespread critical respect. Ed, meanwhile, found a new generation of fans through Modern Family, winning multiple awards and cementing his status as one of television's most beloved figures. Yet in interviews, when asked about the highlights of his career, he would often speak about watching Christina grow into the woman and performer she became. Then on August 10th, 2021, everything changed. Christina posted on social media that she had been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, a chronic disease of the central nervous system that affects mobility, balance, vision, and cognitive function. The diagnosis had come months earlier while she was filming the final season of Dead to Me. There is no cure for MS. The symptoms can be managed, but the disease does not go away. For Christina, it meant rebuilding her entire life from the ground up. She now uses a cane to walk. She has spoken honestly about cognitive fog, about physical limitations she never anticipated, about the grief of mourning a version of herself that no longer exists, all while continuing to live, to work, and to show up. The emotional weight of that experience has been immense. She has talked about fear, anger, and loss with a candor that most public figures would never allow themselves. And through all of it, she has been clear about how much it has mattered to have people from her past who truly know her and truly love her. Ed O'Neill's response to her diagnosis said everything about the nature of their relationship. He did not send a brief message and move on. He made sure Christina knew, in real and tangible ways, that he was there for her. The entire Married with Children cast rallied around her, Katie Sagal, David Faustino, and Amanda Burse all showing their support, but Christina has specifically noted that Ed's response meant the most. After all those years, he was still being her protector. The cast also made something else very clear. Any future reunion of the show would be designed entirely around Christina's needs. They would not do it without her. They would not replace her. The Bundy family was not complete without Kelly, and that was final. In November 2022, Christina made her first major public appearance since her diagnosis, receiving a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. She arrived with her cane, moving more slowly than she once had, but she was present and unashamed. She stood before an enormous crowd and spoke about her illness openly, about fear, uncertainty, and the people who had shown up for her when things got hard. Her voice cracked with emotion at times, but she never stopped speaking. 2 months later, she appeared at the Emmy Awards in January 2023. When she walked onto the stage with her cane, the audience rose to its feet spontaneously and completely. Every person in that room stood and applauded, and they kept applauding for nearly a full minute. Christina stood there, visibly moved, as wave after wave of support filled the room. In her characteristic fashion, she broke the tension with humor, joking that the crowd was shaking her brain. The audience laughed through their tears. It was a perfect expression of who she is, someone capable of being simultaneously heartbreaking and hilarious. Ed was among those who made sure she knew she was loved that night, their private exchanges reflecting the same dynamic that had existed since she was 15 years old. Today, Christina co-hosts a podcast called Messy alongside actress Jamie Lynn Sigler, who also lives with MS. The format suits her current needs, no long hours standing, no memorized scripts, participation entirely on her own terms. It has also opened up new possibilities for what a Married with Children reunion might look like. It does not have to be a traditional sitcom revival with grueling production schedules. Technology and creative formats make alternatives possible. The cast has participated in reunion panels and virtual events over the years, and every time they appear together, audiences are reminded that their chemistry has not faded. If anything, time has deepened it. Ed has been direct on the subject. He would do a reunion, but only if it includes Christina. The other cast members feel the same way. They are a package deal, and that position is non-negotiable. Discussions with networks and streaming platforms about various formats, documentaries, special episodes, virtual reunions, are reportedly ongoing. Nothing has been formally announced, but the will is there on all sides. What Christina Applegate's story ultimately reveals, both about her time on Married with Children and about her life since, is something far more valuable than any behind-the-scenes drama or industry secret. It is a story about what genuine human connection looks like when tested by time, by distance, and by illness. It is about a man who chose to look out for a 15-year-old girl when he had no obligation to do so, and who is still looking out for her nearly 40 years later. It is about a young actress who absorbed those lessons of grace and care and carried them with her through every chapter of her life. The Bundy family on screen insulted each other relentlessly, bickered through every episode, and stumbled from one disaster to the next. But when it mattered, they were always there for each other. As it turned out, that was not just a show. That was real. And some bonds, as Christina and Ed have proven, are simply unbreakable.